first of all, let's bring David Davis into the conversation. Lovely to see you on this Sunday morning. Now, the newspapers don't make for great reading for the Conservative Party. We've got the Sunday Mirror exposed...
I picked a great morning to come on.
I tell you what, yeah, great. The Sunday Mirror's exposed these people partying at CCHQ in December 2020. We've got Bernard Jenkin seemingly having gone to a birthday party around the same time when the Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, Eleanor Lang, referred to it as a business meeting, not in anyone's minds who are watching GB News or listening to the radio. We've got James Warburton now having stood down from Somerset and Frome. That's a fourth by-election for steadying the ship Rishi Sunak. I put it to Michael Gove earlier, and I'll put it to you. The ship's sinking, isn't it? Interest rates at 6%. You were a minister in 97. I think you were Europe minister back then. Yeah. Are we seeing 1997 all over again,
No,
David?
I don't think we are. I mean, it's pretty stormy. I mean, as you say, steadying.
Crikey! That's one way of putting it.
It's going to test Rishi's nautical skills, shall we say. But it's pretty stormy. But no, it's manageable. Look, I came into Parliament in 87, 1 year after Margaret Thatcher lost Rydale. Spectacular loss, and it went from 20-odd thousand majority to, I think, minus 6,000 or something.
Yes.
And then the very next year we got it back again, you know, and we got returned. So I wouldn't worry too much about the by-elections. They'll be embarrassing, difficult, they'll cause problems with momentum.
Do you think you'll win any of them?
Oh, I don't know. It's very hard to tell. It depends if they all happen at the same time or not. Because I mean, even the day we lost Rydale, we hung on to a Derbyshire one.
Yes.
And then they're both safe seats. So it's very hard to tell. I don't think they indicate much, really. They're sort of demonstrator battlefields, but they're not real predictors of outcomes. They never have been.
Yeah.
But, you know, there's no doubt about it. I mean, the
news,
your
as you say, is very, 2024 are looking bad. Look, you've got a very slim chance of pulling this back.
I think we have a modest chance. I wouldn't say it's a majority. I'd say it's probably a two-thirds chance of us not winning, half of it Labour winning, half of it no overall control, a hung Parliament, and us perhaps with a third chance
But
of
what
winning.
do you blame that on? Because I know you were one of the first to call Boris Johnson to go. You know, you can blame Boris Johnson. Lots of people watching and listening to this will be blaming the lack of conservatism in the Conservative Party, which must frustrate somebody like you.
Well, it does. But, I mean, the first thing you got to be careful not to forget is the turmoil we're already in, the sort of objective turmoil, whether it's the COVID, whether it's the Ukraine war, whether it's the run-up of international interest rates, all those things together.
But Rishi Sunak's meant to steady this ship in very choppy waters, and we're now looking at interest rates of 6%. You know, there's a big focus on how it affects the household finances. You're a former businessman.
Rightly.
How does it affect businesses, David? We're going to be seeing foreclosures on people's homes, and we're going to be seeing businesses fold, because there's no way... I mean, the government's expressed surprise this week that there's wage inflation. Well, the government put the minimum wage up by 9.2%. Some of this is idiotic. You know, the corporation tax increase. Corporation tax increase on what profits?
Well, I mean... be careful, because corporation tax with super deductions and so on, it's not necessarily quite as clear as it looks. But you're right, I'm a low-tax Tory. I would prefer a lower tax strategy. I want to see, I'm hoping this autumn, we're going to have an autumn budget and the beginnings of a reduction in taxes. But your point about steadying the ship, we need Rishi more now than ever because of all that turbulence.
Globalist, technocratical Rishi, who may be taken hostage by the Treasury?
No, I don't think so. I think he's the last person to be taken hostage by the Treasury. He's one person who can actually argue with them and stand up to them.
OK, well, let's use an example. There's a story in the paper about people wanting to go against this idea of being in this band of countries that are in this minimum corporation tax ban. They think it's anti-growth, that we shouldn't be aligning ourselves with people with historically high corporation tax rates. The whole point of Brexit was that we went alone. And that we're more Singaporean, and that hasn't happened.
Well, to be honest, I have some sympathy with them, but it's not as simple as it sounds, because I think the idea was to have a minimum corporation tax of 15%. Well, one of the effects of that would be to bring Luxembourg, Ireland, the Netherlands and other countries, and indeed some of our independent territories, into the same box that we're in, because we lose quite a lot of trade to Ireland, for example, because it has a lower... So it would equalise that. So it's not quite as simple as it looks, but I do actually believe that in the long term, corporation tax rate competition is good for the world at large. So
But you'd rather our tax rate was lower, right?
I'd rather the tax rate was low. Of course I would.
Do you agree with Mark?
But not by borrowing to do it, which was the Liz Truss
Sure.
project.
What's your reaction to Mark Carney again having a go at Brexit and blaming Brexit for high inflation?
Well, I've been laughing out loud this week. What with Mark Carney and the KC at the COVID thing, saying
COVID's Brexit's fault.
It's just madness. And what you're seeing is, I think what the social psychologists call confirmatory bias.
Yeah.
People who want to believe Brexit's a terrible thing look round and pick, oh, that went wrong. That's Brexit. They don't look and see that our service exports have gone up by the highest in the G7, the highest in Europe, and pretty much the highest in the world.
Yeah.
That we've got high employment levels and so on and so on.
So how much of it, inflationary measures partially, are the Bank of England's fault? Including Mark Carney. He's the one who presided over.
Well, I think historically there's no doubt that what every country in the world went in for, quantitative easing, has been a feeder to core inflation. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And there were reasons for it at the time. Just as during COVID we had to spend money that we didn't have, bluntly, to keep things going, we're now having to pay the price of that. So yeah, the banks had a role in this. Frankly, I would have had a different bank governor years back.
But are you disappointed with how Brexit's worked out?
No,
Do you think the government's done enough to maximise the opportunity?
No, it hasn't. No, those are two different questions.
OK, answer both.
Answer to one, no, because this is only the second year, really, in the midst of crises galore on a global scale. Has the government done enough? No, it hasn't. Indeed, I think the government missed some chances during the COVID period when it could have been planning things and it wasn't really working hard enough. But also, listen, I resigned because I thought the original strategy was wrong.
Yeah.
And that meant we had to talking about turning ocean liners, we had to pull the whole ocean liner back. And to be fair to Boris, he did start that process. So it hasn't been done as well as it should be. Has it failed? Certainly not, no. I mean, as I say, some of the economic numbers that people don't say to you on our overall growth rate, better than Europe, on service levels, which is the biggest part, 80% of the economy, we're doing really, really well.
Yeah.
So there's lots of things we're doing well. And of course, whether it's vaccines or Ukraine, our independence has actually worked both to our advantage and to the world's advantage.
Although still the news agenda is dominated by all things blonde and Boris-ish. How are you going to vote tomorrow?
If there's a vote, I will vote to support the committee. And the reason for that is I've actually read the report. Yeah. I mean, it's 30,000 words.
You're confident that Harriet Harman was a neutral arbiter in all this, having tweeted that she thought Boris misled Parliament?
Let's understand something about this. I mean, people like Rees-Mogg argue very strongly about the importance of Parliament. Boris argues about it. And one of the things about Parliament is it's the highest court in the land. Yeah. That creates a problem when you're coming to privileges. What's that problem? It's like having a trial in a village. Everybody knows everybody. Yeah. Nobody is entirely unbiased. Anybody in the whole thing. And this was true with Boris too. I mean, people took views on either side of the divide. Now, what's important about this report, and I recommend to your viewers, if they really care about this, actually read it. Yeah. Because what they do is they take 6 cases. They say to Boris, the last 16, the ones involving checkers and so on, they just take Boris's word for it. Yeah. They take 6 cases, where 5 of which he was actually at the parties, and go through them piece by piece and say, did he know about this? Did he know about them? Did he attend?
But he's arguing, how do they know his own mind at the time?
They don't have to. What they know is what he knows. Yeah. If you go to a party, you know it was a party. You don't need an advisor to tell you. And if your viewers don't have time to read the whole thing, just read about the 8 paragraphs from 109 onwards. Yeah, okay. And they'll see what I mean.
Do what journalists do. Just read the conclusion.
Well, it's not the conclusion, because in the conclusion they say, look at paragraph this for that, look at paragraph that. It's a very, very carefully argued report. So, in a way, that means almost independent.
David, this is slightly contradictory, because I remember having conversations with you about the process that Owen Paterson faced, and there's been criticisms. David Warburton said today that standards process is Kafkaesque, and you were concerned about it. So MPs investigating MPs doesn't always work out that way.
The irony, well, of course, Paterson wasn't a full privileges committee. It was a standards.
Yes, so it had some lay people as well.
And I actually went to see Boris in spring of 2021 and said, Boris, you need to fix this system.
And
he didn't.
Right.
He didn't.
So
Because it was somebody else involved. It wasn't him involved. He didn't do anything about it.
One more question about a system that could be fixed.
Yeah.
Resignation honours. Honours in general, David. I mean, the ennobling and indeed the awarding of awards to people. I mean, two of them have been caught out in the CCHQ video, Ben Mallet and Sean Bailey.
Skin crawl.
Who's this Charlotte Owen, who was a secretary to Boris for about 5 minutes and is now a member of the House of Lords?
I think they call them executive assistants.
Something like that. What's going on? Should we just scrap resignation honours?
I don't know. No, I don't think so. I mean, look, what's the point of a resignation honour? I mean, it sounds like an anachronism. What it is normally is prime ministers at the end of their time in office rewarding a few people, notably a few people who have been
so
above...
cap on numbers.
Above, maybe. That may be a good idea.
Maybe 3.
Maybe a good idea.
5.
Oh, a dozen, maybe, but, you know...
A dozen?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, how many people work in number 10? 400, believe it or not, now. But, you know, but the point being, it allows them to reward people who've acted above and beyond in the public interest. But this dates from the days, as it were, when politicians were gentlemen.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's
That's
not...
no longer the case, David.
Well, you must draw... Your viewers must draw their own conclusions.
Yeah, will you get knighted at some point?
I don't think so.
Not by Boris Johnson, but maybe you've supported Rishi Sunak.
No, it doesn't. Well, let me put it this way. I haven't rushed to be knighted or rushed to accept any offers.
Right. Well, thank you very much. Not Sir David Davis. Thank you for joining me in the studio this morning. Always lovely to see you. Thank you.